is Miss Danielle, and I'm with the Watson Branch Library of the Livingston Parish Library, and today I want to welcome you guys to our Clay Creations craft video. We're going to make a lot of really cool things today, like this little planter pot, nice necklace, and I think this one's actually my favorite. It's a little trinket dish. I kind of made it in the shape of a hand, so I thought that would be really fun. All of these items are made with just air dry clay that you can find at any craft store, and all of the tools that I use are just things that you can find lying around the house, so you don't need any special clay tools or special paints or anything like that. If you are interested though in checking out some pottery tools, we do have some available for checkout at the library. Anyway, before we get started, make sure you have a covered surface. I have a tablecloth on my table today, and you want to make sure that you also put on maybe some old clothes or an apron or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put an old t-shirt on, and I'll be right back. The first craft that I would like to share with you guys is it's this little clay pendant necklace. So it's super easy to make, and that's why we're going to do it first. So the supplies you will need are obviously some air dry clay, a bowl of water to keep your hands moist, something kind of circular shape to make the pendant. I just have this little cup today. Once the pendant is done, you'll need some string and I almost dropped it, a little bead. I just like these wooden beads. You can also get some paint if you would like to paint your clay. But another important tool to have is a rolling pin. But if you don't have a rolling pin, you can just use this can of Lysol like me. So, first thing you want to do is knead your clay. And if your clay starts to feel kind of dry and everything, that's what the bowl is for. So you just dip your fingers in the water, moisten it, and bring some water back to the clay. But you kind of have to get it warmed up a little bit to where it starts rolling around, and then you can roll it onto a clean surface. It's also nice to have like a cover, like a tablecloth like this one on it. So once you have it flattened out like a little piece of dough, you just kind of want to roll it with your pin or your makeshift rolling pin in my case. If it sticks to the pin, that's okay, but you want to get it into a nice flat sheet that's, I guess I'd say roughly a 1/4 inch thick of clay. And then, oh, I dropped the cup, that's okay. Then you're going to take your cup or your coin, or I've had people use cookie cutters before, little tiny cookie cutters that they've made on the 3D printer, and you place it on the clay. I kind of like to press mine in a little bit so it leaves an indentation, because then I can lift it and just cut the indentation with a butter knife. I have a clear butter knife today that's just plastic, so you can use a plastic one, a metal one, or if you want to be really, really fancy, you can check out our pottery kits at the library, and you can use our clay tools that are specially designed for this kind of stuff. Obviously ours are checked out today, so I'm just using a plastic knife. So once you have your shape, you want to cut around it. And no matter what sort of cutting tool you are using, please be very careful with it so you do not hurt your fingers. So you take out the excess, and I kind of like to clean up the edges a little bit with some water pressed to my clay to kind of just smooth it out, because that way like those edges aren't quite as rough. You can also just cut around them, but I just like to do this. If you have it on a tablecloth though, it does make it kind of stick to the tablecloth. And when it's all done, you want to take like a chopstick or a stick. I have the end of a paintbrush here today, and just poke a little hole right at the top to fit your string through. You kind of want to make it a little bigger than what you think you're going to need it to be, because clay has a tendency to shrink when it dries, and you don't want the string to be, the hole to be too small for the string to fit through. So ideally, this will dry, and then our string will fit through it, and then we can string it up and make a necklace. And I have to wait for this to dry, so that will have to be filmed at a different point. Well, actually, I have another one. Never mind. We'll just film that. Okay, so once your clay pendant is dry, you can take it and paint it. This is one I made earlier. And you want to have a nice palette to hold your paint. Mine is very fancy. It is a dollar store paper plate. And then have your water ready for your paintbrush and obviously your paint. My sample, all my samples, I don't know what I was doing, but I was really in a mood for blue stuff. So all of my samples I made for this craft today were blue. So I think I'm gonna do some red paint today and just paint my pendant red. And you can really just paint this to whatever your preference is, because with the clay, since you know we're not super perfect about everything here, it's gonna have some natural indentations in it. And so some of the paint might not catch in your clay. But I kind of like that, and I'm fine with it, so I don't really worry about it too much, because you can always just go over it with another paint color to make it really cool. So, but I'm just gonna let that dry, and then when it is dry, we can go ahead and string it up and make a necklace. Okay, so once your paint is dry, you can take a piece of string. I have some leather cord today. You just kind of thread it through your pendant. I have paint on my hands from earlier. So I like to make my string like a little longer than it really needs to be, because you can always cut some string off, but you can't add more string. So once that's threaded through, you can take a little bead. I just have a little wooden one here today. And you thread, oh, I almost forgot. I like to do this first, knot the string. I did this when I was making my sample too. I almost forgot to knot it. So you want to knot the two strings first and knot it really tight, and then thread the bead through. But I mean, it's technically not wrong, because you know there's no wrong way to make your necklace, but I just think this is the best way for the bead to stay on. So once it's threaded through, you want to knot it again just to hold the bead in place. Sometimes it's a little tricky. I also might just be really bad at tying knots. Okay, and then you have a little necklace, and it's just ready to wear, and it's really cute and really simple, and it's all done. All right, so our next project is going to be this little planter pot, and it's pretty easy to make. You just need a couple of different supplies. Some of the pot supplies are the same from our pendant, like our clay, our bowl of water, our very fancy rolling pin. But some other things that you're going to need this time are also some plastic wrap and a cup. So put that to the side. The first thing you want to do is take some clay. Probably going to need a good bit of clay, and start to, ooh, my little piece just went flying toward my lovely camera woman. Sorry about that. Yeah, you're going to want to sort of warm it up in your hands a little bit and kind of get it all ready to go and kneaded. Flatten it out some more. I'd say you want it a little bit thicker than what we did for our pendant. Like, I think our pendant was, I don't know, roughly like 1/4 of an inch in thickness. So this, I like to make it a little bit thicker than that, just because we're gonna put a little plant inside of it when it's done. Okay, so that is our first sheet. We're probably gonna make quite a few little sheets to kind of form the inside of our cup, because the cup is gonna form basically be a mold for our planter pot. But I learned this the hard way. You want to line your mold for your planter pot with something that's easily removable, like plastic wrap. Otherwise, it makes it very hard for you to remove the clay from the cup, and then you have to try and physically cut the clay out of the cup with some scissors, and you know, it wasn't fun. I ruined a whole cup. Okay. So you want to, I dropped it. You want to take your sheets of clay, and I'm going to just take a little bit off and start at the bottom. It's probably going to be a little hard to see what I'm doing in here, but basically you're just taking the clay and you are using it to kind of mold around the inside of the cup. So you want to just get the basic shape of the cup going on with this clay. And I'm going to need a little more clay. And I'm going to attempt to kind of show the camera what I'm trying to do. So you want to have all your clay in the cup. Now, the fun part is this one actually gets really messy. In order to kind of like get it more smooth and like even inside, you want to take your hand and dip it in the water. And you want to really get a lot of water on your hands, and you kind of want to use it to flatten and smooth the inside of the clay to where it fits the cup really, really well. Basically, think of it as like you're making a second cup inside of the cup. So you want it to just kind of fit, kind of like when you put your socks on, then your shoes, and they just kind of go together. It's kind of that sort of same concept. And you just kind of smooth it out with your hands. And I'm finding that I'm going to need a little bit more clay on the bottom of my cup because I've got plenty on the walls, but I don't have a bottom to my planter, and so that would make a giant hole in my planter pot if I did that. So I'm going to add some more to the bottom of mine. And just kind of smooth it in there. A little more clay. And you can do this with any size cup that you want. You just want to make sure you have enough clay to, you know, stretch around the inside of the cup and on the bottom. And I find that like the bottom always takes a little bit more clay than you think, because when you're sort of making this, all the clay kind of gets dispersed around to the edges of the cup and stretched out, and then you're like, oh no, I don't have a bottom in my cup. I feel like that's pretty much done. So when this is all done and dry, it's really easy. You can just take the plastic wrap and just lift your plant pot out of the cup. But you want to do it when it's dry. So when it's moist like that, it's really easy to bend. So I'm going to let mine dry in the cup. And the dry time for a lot of these projects is a minimum of 24 hours. It also depends on the temperature of your room that you're drying it in. So like if you're drying it outside, it might take a little less time. If you're drying it inside of a very cold library, it might take a little more time. So mine took a couple of days to actually dry for a lot of these little projects. But also the size of the project matters. So a bigger project like this is probably going to take maybe 24 to 48 hours to dry. Whereas a smaller project like the pendant, you know, it'll probably take 24 hours or less for that to dry. So we'll be right back with our planter pot. Okay, so our last project is going to be our little hand-shaped clay trinket jar. So for this, you want to get a good piece of clay and roll it out into a nice flat sheet like this, because you're going to be able, you're going to want to have your hand fit nicely across it. If your clay is also covered in paint like mine, that's okay, because we're going to paint over this anyway. So you want to take your hand and take your clay knife and kind of trace around your hand really lightly, just so you can get the shape. Okay, so once you have the shape, then you can kind of go in with your cutting tool, clay knife, butter knife, whatever you've got going on, and start to kind of cut and trim away the excess. I like to sort of peel the excess away as I go, just because that's what kind of helps me. If you mess up and still have cut lines, that's okay, because we're gonna use some water to just smooth those cut lines out where you have a nice smooth surface on your bowl. And no like big rough edges or anything like that. Okay, and I think I'm gonna kind of like cut that little end piece off. Yeah. So once you have it cut, you can go ahead and take some water and sort of smooth things up a little bit, just so you kind of have like a nice smooth shape going on. It just makes it a little nicer. And for me, it's just because I always mess up my cutting lines on clay, and I don't want them to show. So I just kind of erase them away with the water. It works. And one thing that's optional, but that I really liked doing, was I kind of made some little finger lines for my hand. Okay, so once your palm is made, you want to take a round object like a bowl or a cup. I have this nice big mug here, and sort of form it around the shape to where it kind of is resting like this, because then once it's dry, it's going to make a bowl shape like that. And then you just let it dry. This one definitely takes longer to dry. I would give this project a minimum of 48 hours to dry, just because I find that this one tends to take a little longer, I think, since it's the biggest project and it uses the most amount of clay. Okay, so once your bowl is pretty much dry, sometimes it's not quite dry, like I said, it takes a few days, but you can still paint it as long as it's pretty firm, because the paint takes a little while to dry. So once it's kind of achieved its bowl shape, you can go ahead and paint it. I'm actually going to paint some Mardi Gras colors, because it's almost Mardi Gras. Oh. I'm going to get a drier brush than what I currently have, because I did not realize it was so wet. But that's okay. But you can paint it whatever colors that you want. I think I painted the first one that I made like a blue shape. Shade. Why did I say shape? So weird. Some purple. Need to knock some more of that green paint out of my brush before I start painting. I think the gold paint is my favorite one, because it just looks really cool. Because gold paint just looks really pretty. And you can just never have enough of that. I'm actually going to kind of let this sort of dry in here, so because it kind of helps it keep its shape and everything. Because like I said, this project takes quite a while to dry. Mine is still not totally 100% dry, but it'll dry to like a really nice, it'll be nice and hard, and it'll be the shape that I need. And at some point, once it's all dry, you have your little bowl kind of like this one. Like I said, I was really feeling blues on the day that I painted this one, but they're really cool because you can just put, whatever you want inside. And it's nice and fun. Okay guys, thank you for coming to our Clay Creations video. We hope to see you soon on some of our other programs. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram and at our library website if you have any other questions, comments, or if you want to participate in more videos. So, bye!